The sirens wail pierce the night as Emma Chin raced down the corridor, her lab coat flapping behind her like broken wings. Blood trickled from a gash on her forehead, but she couldn't stop. Not with what she knew, not with what was coming. The facility's emergency lights bathed everything in crimson, transforming the pristine research center into something from a nightmare. "Lock it down!" she screamed into her comm unit, her voice cracking with desperation. "For God's sake, lock it all down now." Behind her, glass shattered. Something heavy crashed against metal. Then came the sound she'd been dreading, a low, guttural growl that seemed to vibrate through the very walls. Not animal, not quite human, something worse. Emma slammed her palm against the biometric scanner of her private lab, tumbling inside just as the lights flickered. Through the reinforced glass panels, she caught a glimpse of a massive shadow moving with impossible speed down the hallway she'd just escaped. The door sealed with a hiss, engaging multiple locks that hadn't been tested against anything like what was out there. Her trembling fingers flew across the keyboard, uploading the data that could save humanity or doom it if it fell into the wrong hands. The monitor flashed. Transmission initiated. Estimated time, 7 minutes. Too long. Far too long. She reached for the small case hidden beneath her desk, the one she prayed she'd never need to open. Inside lay a sleek injector gun and 5 vials of luminescent blue liquid. Project Lazarus, her life's work and possibly her greatest sin. The first impact against her lab door made the hinges groan. The second left a web of cracks in the reinforced glass. Emma didn't wait for the third. She loaded a vial into the injector and pressed it against her neck. "I'm sorry," she whispered to no one and everyone. "I tried to stop it." The needle plunged into her flesh as the door exploded inward. 18 months later, Ryder Sullivan stared through cracked binoculars at what remained of Denver. Once a gleaming metropolis nestled against the Rockies, now it was just another dead zone. Skeletal skyscrapers jutting from the wasteland like broken teeth in a rotting jaw. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the ruins, hiding whatever moved among them. And things definitely moved among them. "See anything?" asked Mia, crouching beside him on the ridge. At 19. She was 7 years his junior, yet somehow carried herself with more gravity than most of the survivors twice her age. The rifle slung across her back looked too large for her slender frame, but Ryder had seen her use it with deadly precision. "Nothing good," he replied, lowering the binoculars. 3 packs at least, moving in formation. Mia's expression hardened. "They don't move in formation. They're chaotic, territorial. They fight each other. They used to." Ryder slipped the binoculars into his pack. "Things are changing. They're organizing." The silence that followed was heavy with implication. For months, they'd been hearing rumors. Frantic transmissions from other survivor enclaves, garbled warnings about evolution, adaptation. Most dismissed it as panic, the desperate justifications of outposts about to fall. But Ryder had seen enough to know better. "We need to warn the others," Mia said, already backing away from the ridge. "If they're coordinating attacks now, it won't matter." Ryder's voice was flat. "Half the council doesn't believe the Pharaohs are anything more than rabid animals, even after what happened at Outpost 7. Mia grabbed his arm. "Then make them believe. We don't have to be enemies. Dr. Chen's research is gone." Ryder cut her off more sharply than he intended. Aurora facility was overrun in the first wave. Emma Chen is dead. Whatever she discovered about the Pharaohs died with her. "You don't know that," Mia insisted, her eyes flashing with that stubborn hope Ryder both admired and resented. The transmissions were incomplete, corrupted. He stood, brushing dust from his worn tactical pants. "We focus on what we can control. Getting back to the settlement before dark." reinforcing our defenses, surviving another day. They moved in silence down the rocky slope toward their hidden vehicle, an old military Humvee modified with scavenged solar panels and noise dampeners. The wasteland stretched before them, dotted with the rusted husks of abandoned cars and the occasional bleached bone. Few ventured this far from protected zones anymore. Those who did rarely returned. As Ryder slid behind the wheel, a sharp pain lanced through his temple. He gritted his teeth, hoping Mia wouldn't notice. The headaches were getting worse, more frequent, just like the dreams. "You okay?" Mia asked, proving his hopes futile. "Fine, just tired." He started the engine, which hummed to life with barely a whisper. "We'll make it back before the patrol change. No one needs to know we were out here." Mia's gaze lingered on him, concerned and calculating. Secrets have a way of turning toxic, Ryder, especially now. He didn't answer, focusing instead on navigating the treacherous terrain. The settlement loomed in the distance. Haven, they called it, a sprawling compound of concrete and steel, surrounded by 3 layers of reinforced walls topped with electrified wire, one of the last bastions of organized human civilization in what used to be Colorado. Ryder checked his watch, an old habit from a world where time still mattered. For hours until nightfall. When darkness came, the Pharaohs owned the world. The first sign something was wrong came as they approached Haven's outer checkpoint. No guards manned the watchtowers. The massive gate stood partially open, a breach of every security protocol they'd established. "This isn't right," Mia whispered, already reaching for a rifle. Ryder accelerated, heart hammering against his ribs. As they drew closer, he could see dark smears on the concrete walls. Bodies sprawled on the ground. The crack of gunfire echoed from inside the compound. "They're inside," he breathed, disbelief warring with horror. But how? The walls were... Over there. Mia pointed to where a section of the outer wall had collapsed entirely, as if struck by something massive, or blown from within. "We can't help them," Ryder said, putting the vehicle in reverse. "Not now. Not like this. We can't just leave." Mia protested, but her eyes were fixed on the approaching figures, humanoid but wrong in ways that turned the stomach. Their skin was mottled gray and black, muscles rippling beneath in unnatural configurations. Some moved on all fours with horrifying speed. Others walked upright, wielding crude weapons. Ferals, dozens of them, and at their center, a massive figure that made Ryder's blood run cold. Standing nearly 7 feet tall, its body was a patchwork of mutated flesh, and what looked like metal or bone armor. Its head was elongated, jaw distended to accommodate rows of razor-sharp teeth. But what froze Ryder in place were its eyes, bright, intelligent, and fixed directly on their vehicle with unmistakable recognition. It raised a gnarled hand, and as if on command, the Pharaohs changed direction toward them. "Ryder." Mia's voice was barely audible over the blood rushing in his ears. "Ryder, they see us." He floored the accelerator, tires spinning on loose gravel before finding purchase. The Humvee shot backward as the first of the Pharaohs broke into a sprint, moving with the fluid grace of apex predators. "They shouldn't be out in daylight," Mia said, knuckles white around her rifle. "They've never attacked during the day before." Ryder spun the wheel, executing a tight turn that sent dust billowing around them. "Like I said, they're evolving." As they sped away from the fallen settlement, Ryder fought the urge to look back. Haven was lost. Their friends, their community, gone in what must have been minutes. And he couldn't shake the feeling that the leader of the Pharaohs had looked at him not just with intelligence, but with purpose, like it had been waiting for him specifically. The pain in his temple flared again, sharper this time, accompanied by a flash of images. A sterile lab, emergency lights, a woman's face contorted in fear. then darkness, and a voice he didn't recognize whispering, "Find me. Where are we going?" Mia asked, breaking through his momentary disorientation. Ryder blinked away the afterimages, focusing on the road ahead, east. There's an old military bunker in the mountains. We can regroup, figure out our next move. Our next move? Mia's laugh was brittle. Haven is gone. Everyone we know is probably dead. What next move could possibly matter? He didn't answer immediately, scanning the horizon for signs of pursuit. The mountains loomed to their east, jagged peaks still capped with snow even in summer. Somewhere in those mountains was their only hope, though Ryder wasn't ready to explain that to Mia, not when he barely understood it himself. "There's something I haven't told you," he finally said, keeping his eyes on the road. "About Aurora facility. About Emma Chun." Mia turned to face him fully, her expression wary. What about her? She wasn't just researching the ferals. She was trying to communicate with them. He paused, knowing how insane the next part would sound. "And I think she succeeded." The bunker was cold, its concrete walls sweating with condensation that dripped steadily into rusted buckets. Decades of neglect had left most of the equipment useless, but the structure itself remained intact, built to withstand nuclear war, now sheltering survivors of a different apocalypse. Ryder stood before the faded map of Colorado pinned to the wall, tracing routes with a finger worn rough from survival. Mia sat nearby, methodically cleaning her rifle with practiced precision, though they had precious few bullets left to fire. "You still haven't explained," she said without looking up, "about Dr. Chun, about how you know any of this." Ryder had been avoiding this conversation since they'd arrived at the bunker 3 days ago, but with supplies dwindling and no clear path forward, he could stall no longer. "I was security at Aurora," he admitted, "before the outbreak." Mia's hand stilled. "You worked at the facility? Why didn't you ever say anything?" "Because I signed about 50 non-disclosure agreements, and even after the world ended, old habits die hard." He turned from the map, "And because I was there the night everything went wrong. I was supposed to protect those people. Mia, I failed." The memories surfaced unwanted, alarms blaring, scientists running in panic, security protocols failing one by one as something tore to the facility's lower levels. "What happened?" Mia asked, her voice gentler now. Ryder sank into a chair opposite her, suddenly feeling the weight of every one of his 37 years. Aurora wasn't just a research facility. It was the epicenter. Patient Zero was there, the first feral. That's impossible. The official report said the outbreak started in multiple locations simultaneously. The official reports were lies. Ryder ran a hand through his hair, now streaked with premature gray. The government was experimenting with something they shouldn't have been. Genetic modifications, neural enhancements, creating super soldiers, essentially. And instead, they created monsters, Mia concluded. Not exactly. He leaned forward. The test subjects were stable at first. Enhanced strength, accelerated healing, improved cognitive function. Everything they wanted, but then something changed. The subjects became aggressive, unpredictable. Their DNA started rewriting itself. Mia's eyes widened. Rewriting how? "I don't know the science." Emma, Dr. Chun, tried to explain it once. Something about the modifications activating dormant genes, evolutionary throwbacks, making them more primitive but also more adaptable. He shook his head. Whatever the cause, it spread fast, not just through the test subjects, but the staff exposed to them. Within hours, half the facility was compromised. But how did it get outside? Aurora was supposed to be secure. Someone let them out. The words tasted bitter. Deliberately. We still don't know who or why. Mia was silent for a long moment, absorbing this. Finally, she asked, "What does any of this have to do with us now, with where we go from here?" Ryder hesitated, then reached into his jacket and pulled out a small device, rectangular, with a cracked screen that still somehow glowed with faint blue light. This belonged to Emma-chan. She gave it to me the night of the outbreak, told me to keep it safe. He placed it on the table between them. It's a specialized tablet containing all her research, including what she was working on at the end. A potential cure. Mia's breath caught. A cure? For the ferals? Not exactly. More like a stabilizer. Something to halt the progression. Maybe even reverse some effects in the early stages. He tapped the tablet screen. The problem is most of the data is encrypted. I've only been able to access fragments. But from what I can tell, she was onto something big right before the end. Something about communication pathways in infected brains. Communication? You mean like talking to them? More than that. She believed the ferals aren't just mindless killers. They're developing a hive mind, a collective consciousness that grows stronger as their numbers increase. Ryder stood again, too restless to remain seated. That explains what we saw at Haven. The coordination, the strategy. They're not just getting stronger, they're getting smarter. Mia stared at the tablet as if it might bite her. If what you're saying is true, we're even more screwed than I thought. Or it could be our only chance. Ryder traced a location on the map. There's another facility, a sister site to Aurora. Lower profile, more remote. If any of Emma's team survived, that's where they go. And they might be able to finish what she started. That's a big if. And an even bigger journey through feral territory. What choice do we have? Ryder spread his hands. Wait here until our food runs out or the ferals find us. Mia stood, shouldering her rifle. When do we leave? The question surprised him. He'd expected arguments, resistance. You're in? Just like that. Haven is gone, she said simply. Everyone I ever cared about was there. If there's even a small chance we can stop these things from doing that to someone else. She shrugged. Besides, you'd get yourself killed within a day without me. Despite everything, Ryder felt a smile tug at his lips. Probably true. As they began gathering supplies for the journey, Ryder felt another headache building. Stronger this time, accompanied by a high-pitched ringing in his ears. He braced himself against the wall, hoping Mia wouldn't notice. "Find me," came the whisper again, clearer now, not his imagination. A voice, distant but distinct, pushing through the static in his mind. Before it's too late, for a terrifying moment, he wondered if he was infected, if the feral hive mind was somehow reaching out to him. But no, this felt different. Familiar somehow, though he couldn't place it. "Ryder?" Mia's concerned voice cut through his thoughts. "You're bleeding." He touched his nose, fingers coming away red. "It's nothing, just altitude." Her skeptical look said she didn't believe him, but she didn't press the issue. "We should leave at first light. Ferals are still less active during the day, even if they can tolerate it now." Ryder nodded, wiping the blood away. First light. As they prepared to rest, he found himself drawn back to the tablet, its blue light casting eerie shadows across the bunker's walls. He activated it, scrolling through fragmented files he'd managed to decrypt. Most were technical documents beyond his understanding. Gene sequences, brain scans, chemical formulas. But one file was different. A video recording dated the day of the outbreak. He'd watched it dozens of times, searching for clues, for answers, for absolution, perhaps. Emma Chen's face filled the screen, her expression grim but determined. Behind her, emergency lights flashed, and distant alarms could be heard. "If anyone finds this," she began, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. Then Project Lazarus has failed containment. The subjects are loose, and the contagion is spreading faster than we predicted. I take full responsibility for this catastrophe. My ambition blinded me to the risks. She glanced over her shoulder as something crashed in the background, then continued with greater urgency. But there's still hope. The modification sequence we used, it could be reversed. The key is in the neural pathways, specifically the limbic restructuring that occurs in stage 2 of infection. We can use it to communicate with them, to understand them. She leaned closer to the camera. They're not just mutating randomly. They're adapting with purpose, becoming something new, something that might be reasoned with. Another crash, closer this time. Emma's eyes darted off screen. I don't have time to explain everything. The full data is being transmitted to Outpost Omega. If you're seeing this, find Dr. Marcus Vega. He knows the second phase of the protocol. She swallowed hard. And if you encounter Subject Alpha, tell him I'm sorry. Tell him I never meant. The video cut to static at that point, as it always did. Ryder closed the file, troubled as ever by her final words. Subject Alpha, the first test subject, Patient Zero, was that the creature he'd seen leading the attack on Haven? The one that had seemed to recognize him? And why did he feel, with growing certainty, that the voice in his head belonged to Emma Chun, a woman who had supposedly died 18 months ago when Aurora facility fell? Sleep eluded him that night, his dreams plagued by fragmented images, sterile corridors running with blood, creatures moving in shadow, a woman's face transforming into something inhuman, yet still recognizable. And always that insistent whisper, "Find me." Dawn broke cold and clear over the mountains, painting the devastated landscape in deceptively beautiful hues of gold and rose. Ryder and Mia emerged from the bunker into the crisp morning air, equipment packed, weapons loaded with their precious few remaining bullets. The journey to Outpost Omega would take them through what used to be Rocky Mountain National Park, once a haven for tourists and nature lovers, now one of the most dangerous territories in the region. Pharaohs thrived in the dense forests and steep terrain, using the natural labyrinth to ambush unwary travelers. We stay on high ground when possible, Ryder explained as they loaded their gear into the Humvee. Move during daylight. Find secure shelter before dusk. No fires, no unnecessary noise. Mia nodded, her expression solemn. She'd pulled her dark hair back in a tight braid, her young face hardened by determination and the new reality of being among the last of Haven's survivors. "What aren't you telling me?" she asked abruptly, fixing him with a penetrating stare. "About these headaches, the nosebleeds, about how you really know where we're going." Ryder paused, one hand on the driver's door. "What makes you think I'm hiding something?" "Because you talk in your sleep," she said simply. "You keep saying, 'I hear you,' over and over. Who are you talking to, Ryder?" He considered lying, deflecting, but they were about to risk their lives together on this journey. She deserved some truth, at least. "I'm not sure," he admitted. "Since Haven fell. No, even before that, I've been experiencing something. Voices, images, like memories, but not mine." He tapped his temple. "At first, I thought it was stress, PTSD from Aurora. Now I'm not so sure." "You think someone's actually communicating with you? How is that possible?" "I don't know." He climbed into the vehicle, ending the conversation. "But Outpost Omega might have answers. Let's focus on getting there alive." They drove in silence for the first hour, following overgrown service roads that wound into the mountains. Nature had begun reclaiming the human world with startling speed. Vines strangled abandoned vehicles. Saplings pushed through cracked asphalt. Wildlife roamed freely through areas once dominated by tourists and park rangers. It would have been beautiful if not for the occasional grim reminder of what had happened here. a child's backpack caught in brambles, a hiking boot with bleach bones still visible inside, the skeletal remains of a family's campsite now serving as a feral feeding ground. Near midday, they came to a blockage in the road, a massive rock slide that had taken out the path entirely. Ryder killed the engine, studying their options through the binoculars. "We'll have to go around," he said finally. "There's a valley to the north that might." "Ryder." Mia's voice was tight with warning. She pointed to the forest edge, where shadows moved between the trees. Not the random movements of wildlife, but the purposeful stalking of predators. "How many?" he asked quietly, reaching for his rifle. "At least 5 that I can see." Her hand moved to the door handle. "We should make a run for those rocks. Better cover than the vehicle." Ryder nodded, keeping his movements slow and deliberate. "On 3. 1, 2. Before he could say 3, something heavy landed on Humvee's roof with a resounding thud. Claws screeched against metal as the vehicle rocked violently. "Go!" Ryder shouted, shoving open his door and rolling out just as a feral's arm punched through the roof where his head had been moments before. He came up firing, the rifle's report deafening in the mountain air. The creature on the roof jerked backward, black ichor spraying from its shoulder, but it didn't fall. These weren't the shambling infected of bad zombie movies. They were resilient, fast, and lethal. Mia was already sprinting for the boulder field 30 yards away, firing controlled bursts at the shapes emerging from the tree line. Ryder followed, providing covering fire until his magazine clicked empty. He swore, fumbling for a reload as he ran. They reached the rocks just as the first wave of ferals broke from the trees. 5 of them, moving with that unnatural combination of animal grace and human calculation. Their skin was mottled gray and black, eyes milky white, yet somehow tracking their prey with perfect precision. "Up!" Mia shouted, already climbing higher into the boulder field. Ferals were fearsome climbers, but the rocky terrain would slow them down, force them into choke points where Mia and Ryder could pick them off. Ryder followed, ignoring the burning in his lungs and the fresh spike of pain behind his eyes. The headache was back, worse than before, vision blurring at the edges. Not now, he thought desperately. Please, not now. They reached a defensive position, a natural alcove formed by 3 massive boulders, with clear sight lines to the approaches below. Mia took a position on one side, Ryder on the other, both aiming at the paths the ferals would have to take to reach them. The first feral appeared, scrambling up the rocks with inhuman speed. Mia's shot caught in the chest, spinning it backward. It tumbled down the slope but somehow caught itself, the wound already beginning to close as it gathered itself for another attempt. "Head shots only," Ryder reminded her. "Center mass won't keep them down." 2 more appeared from different angles, coordinating their approach. Ryder took aim at the closer one, exhaled slowly and squeezed the trigger. The feral's head snapped back, body going limp as it collapsed among the rocks. Mia's target was faster, dodging as she fired and closing the distance in a series of bounding leaps. Ryder swung to help, but his vision suddenly swam, the pain in his head exploding into white-hot agony. He staggered, rifle slipping from nerveless fingers. "Not them," came the voice, louder than ever before, cutting to the pain like a blade. "They're searching too. For me, like you." "Ryder." Mia's scream barely registered as she fired repeatedly at the approaching feral, which was now mere yards away. Through his fractured vision, Ryder saw something impossible. The feral hesitated, head tilting as if listening to a sound only it could hear. Its milky eyes found Ryder's, and in them he saw not mindless hunger but confusion, recognition. Then another shot rang out, not from Mia's rifle but from somewhere else entirely. The ferals had exploded in a spray of black, body crumpling instantly. Gunfire erupted all around them, precise and devastating. Within seconds, The remaining ferals lay dead among the rocks, their bodies already beginning to dissolve. A horrific feature of their accelerated biology. "Don't move," called a voice from above them. "Stay exactly where you are." Ryder blinked through the receding pain, trying to focus on the figures now surrounding their position. At least 6 of them, wearing mismatched tactical gear and aiming very professional-looking weapons. "Identify yourselves," commanded the same voice, female, authoritative, coming from a tall figure in a gray combat uniform. Mia looked to Ryder, who was still struggling to collect himself. "I'm Mia Zhang," she answered. "This is Ryder Sullivan. We're from Haven Settlement." "Haven fell 3 days ago," the woman replied flatly. "No survivors." "We weren't there when it happened," Mia explained. "We were on a recon mission." The woman approached cautiously, rifle still raised. As she drew closer, Ryder could make out her features, mid-40s, dark skin, close-cropped gray hair, and eyes that had seen far too much. "Commander Thorne," she introduced herself tersely. "Outpost Omega Security." Ryder's head snapped up at that, pain momentarily forgotten. "Outpost Omega? That's where we're headed." Thorne's eyes narrowed with suspicion. "Why?" Before Ryder could answer, the headache surged again, dropping him to one knee. Blood trickled from his nose as images flashed through his mind. A laboratory, a quarantine chamber, a woman in a hospital bed, surrounded by monitoring equipment. "He needs medical attention," Mia insisted, moving to his side. "Stay back," Thorne ordered, weapon now trained directly on Ryder. "How long has he been like this?" "The headache started a few days ago, but they're getting worse." Thorne gestured to one of her team, who approached with some kind of handheld scanner. The device beeped rapidly as it passed over Ryder's head. "Neural activity off the charts," the technician reported. "Pattern matches the others." "The others?" Mia demanded. "What others? What's happening to him?" Thorne lowered her weapon slightly, expression shifting from suspicion to grim understanding. "Your friend is receiving a signal. The same one that's been calling every feral in the region to Outpost Omega." She knelt to look Ryder in the eye. "And I think you know who's sending it, don't you?" Through the pain, Ryder managed to focus on her face. "Emma Chun," he whispered. "She's alive." Thorne nodded once. "For now, but she's not the only one." She stood, gesturing for her team to help Ryder to his feet. "Subject Alpha is coming for her, and it looks like you've been invited to the reunion." Outpost Omega bore little resemblance to the sleek research facility Ryder had expected. Nestled in a narrow mountain valley, it looked more like a converted mining operation. Industrial buildings partially buried in the mountainside, surrounded by hastily constructed defensive positions. Armed personnel patrolled the perimeter, many bearing the distinctive scars of those who'd survived close encounters with ferals. Snipers watched from hidden nests in the surrounding peaks. Motion sensors and primitive but effective traps lined every approach. Ryder sat in the outpost medical bay, electrodes attached to his temples as a tired-looking doctor examined readouts on a tablet. Mia hovered nearby, alternating between concern for Ryder and wary observation of their new hosts. Neural hyperactivity concentrated in the limbic system and prefrontal cortex, the doctor muttered, moored himself then to them. Consistent with the other receivers, but stronger, much stronger. Other receivers? Ryder asked. His headache had subsided to a dull throb since their arrival at the outpost. The voice in his mind reduced to distant whispers. "We've encountered 17 individuals with similar symptoms," the doctor explained. "People who hear Dr. Chen's transmissions. Most are former Aurora personnel with varying degrees of exposure to early-stage ferals." "I was security at Aurora," Ryder confirmed, "the night of the outbreak, but I was never infected." The doctor gave him a look that was equal parts pity and scientific interest. Everyone at Aurora was exposed. The question is why some respond to the signal, while others don't. Before Ryder could process the implications of this, the door opened and Commander Thorne entered, accompanied by a thin man with haunted eyes and a nervous demeanor. Dr. Vega. The doctor acknowledged with a nod. Ryder straightened at the name. Marcus Vega? Emma mentioned you in her final transmission. The thin man blinked rapidly, hands fidgeting with the sleeve of his lab coat. She did? What did she say? That you knew the second phase of the protocol, that you could help finish what she started. Vega looked pained. Emma always did place too much faith in me. I was her assistant, nothing more. Don't sell yourself short, Doctor, Thorne said, her tone suggesting this was a frequent exchange between them. You've kept her alive this long. Barely, Vega muttered. I want to see her, Ryder said, removing the electrodes despite the doctor's protests. Thorne and Vega exchanged glances. That might not be wise in your condition, Thorne said carefully. The proximity could amplify the signal, accelerate your transformation. My what? Ryder stood, anger flaring. I'm not turning into one of those things. I'm not infected. Not in the conventional sense, no, Vega clarified. But your brain chemistry is changing. The signal is rewiring neural pathways, creating new connections. He hesitated. It's what Emma predicted would happen. Symbiotic communication between human and ferrobiology. Mia stepped forward. You're saying he's becoming a bridge between us and them? In layman's terms, yes, Vega conceded, though it's more complex than that. Ryder fought down rising panic. I didn't ask for this. I don't want it. None of you has asked for any of this, Thorne said bluntly. But here we are, and right now, you might be our best chance of understanding what Emma's trying to tell us before Subject Alpha arrives. You keep mentioning this Alpha, Mia interjected. What exactly is it? Vega's expression darkened. Not what? Who? Subject Alpha was Dr. Chen's primary test subject, a volunteer who underwent the most extensive modifications in the program. When the changes began to accelerate beyond our predictions, he was the first to transform, the first to develop the ability to influence others. He's their leader, Thorne added, the apex predator, and he's been hunting Emma since Aurora fell. Why? Ryder demanded. Revenge? We thought so at first, Vega said, but it's more complicated. Emma believes he needs her to complete his own transformation, to stabilize the changes before they consume him entirely. The pieces started falling into place in Ryder's mind. The stabilizer she was working on, that's what he wants. Precisely, and now he's close. Our perimeter sensors have detected massive feral movement in the region, all converging on this location. Thorne's face was grim. We have maybe 48 hours before they reach us. I have 73 personnel, limited ammunition, and no extraction plan. Then let's evacuate, Mia suggested. Take Dr. Chun and run. She can't be moved, Vega said, shaking his head. The equipment keeping her stable is too delicate, too specialized. Then let me see her, Ryder insisted. If I'm receiving her signal, maybe I can help understand what she's trying to tell us before it's too late. After a long moment of consideration, Thorne nodded. Follow me, but I'm warning you, what you're about to see might change your definition of alive. The secure lab deep within the mountain was a stark contrast to utilitarian facilities above. Cutting-edge equipment hummed with quiet efficiency. Screens displayed complex data streams, and in the center stood a cylindrical chamber filled with pale blue liquid. Floating within, connected to countless tubes and monitoring devices, was Emma Chun. Ryder's breath caught in his throat. She looked both more and less than human. Her skin had taken on a translucent quality, veins visible beneath the surface pulsing with an unnatural bluish glow. Her eyes were closed, but rapid movement beneath the lids suggested intense activity. "What happened to her?" he whispered. "Project Lazarus," Vega replied, approaching the chamber with the reverence of a priest before an altar, Emma's last resort. When the facility was breached, she injected herself with an experimental compound designed to combat feral infection, but it wasn't perfected. "She's not infected," Mia observed, studying the floating form with horrified fascination. "No," Vega agreed. "She's evolving." The compound was derived from feral DNA, but modified to maintain human cognitive functions. It placed her in a suspended state while her body adapts. "Adapts to what?" Ryder asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "To communicate with them," Vega said simply. "To understand them at the most fundamental level. The ferals operate on a frequency normal humans can't perceive. Pheromones, subsonic vocalizations, possibly even electromagnetic signals between altered neural structures." Ryder moved closer to the chamber, drawn by a force he couldn't explain. The pain in his head diminished with each step, replaced by a strange clarity. "And the signal she's sending out? The one I can hear." "A side effect we didn't anticipate," Vega explained. "Her transformed brain is broadcasting, but only certain individuals can receive. Those with neural structures primed by exposure to early-stage ferals." "Like me," Ryder murmured. "Yes, though you're unusually receptive, which suggests your exposure was significant." Ryder placed his palm against the cool glass of the chamber. Immediately, the monitors around them spiked, alarms blaring as Emma's body jerked within the fluid. "Step back," Vega cried, rushing to the controls. But Ryder couldn't move. The connection between them had solidified, images flooding his mind with crystal clarity now. Not random fragments, but a coherent message. "They're coming." Emma's voice resonated within his skull. "Not just Alpha. All of them. The convergence has begun." "What convergence?" Ryder asked aloud. Vega stared at him in shock. "You can hear her?" "Clearly." Ryder nodded, keeping his hand pressed to the glass despite Thorne's attempt to pull him away. "She's talking about something called the convergence." "That's impossible," Vega muttered, checking the readouts. Her brain shouldn't be capable of forming coherent thoughts, let alone transmitting them. "The stabilizer isn't finished," Emma continued, her mental voice becoming more urgent. "Alpha knows this. He needs me alive, needs my research to complete the transformation. If he gets it, nothing will stop him." "How do we stop him?" Ryder asked. "You can't. Not directly. He's too strong, too advanced." A pause, then, "But I found a weakness. Their evolution has a flaw. Collective consciousness comes at the cost of individual identity. The more connected they become, the more vulnerable to disruption." An image formed in Ryder's mind. A device, complex but recognizable, its purpose suddenly clear. "The signal disruptor," he murmured. "That's what you've been working on." "Yes. If Alpha reaches me, use it. Broadcast on the frequency I've encoded in your mind. It will sever the connections between them, reduce them to isolated ferals again." "And what happens to you?" "A sensation like sad laughter." "I'm already gone, Ryder. This is just an echo." The connection broke abruptly as Vega finally managed to pull Ryder away from the chamber. He stumbled backward, disoriented by the sudden silence in his mind. "What did she tell you?" Thorne demanded, steadying him. "She has a plan," Ryder said, his thoughts racing. "A way to disrupt the feral hive mind. But we need—" He was interrupted by the outpost alarm system blaring to life. Thorne's comm unit crackled with panicked voices. "Command! This is West Perimeter. Multiple contacts approaching from a valley. At least 50. No, make that 100. They're moving faster than we've ever seen. Thorne's face hardened. They're early. Alpha must have pushed them through the night. She turned to Vega. Doctor, initiate lockdown protocols. Prepare to move Dr. Chun to the secure vault. It won't matter, Ryder said, the certainty in his voice stopping them both. They know exactly where she is. Alpha can sense her just like I can. Then what do you suggest? Thorne asked, her tone making it clear she expected more than problems. Ryder met her gaze steadily. We finished what Emma started. The signal disruptor she was working on, where is it? Vega blinked in surprise. In the engineering lab, but it's incomplete, untested. Show me. Now. As they rushed from the room, Ryder cast one last glance at Emma's suspended form. Her eyes had opened, milky white like a pharaoh's, yet somehow still recognizably hers. And for a moment, he could have sworn she smiled. The engineering lab was a chaotic mess of half-completed projects and salvaged equipment, a testament to the outpost's desperate innovation in the face of extinction. The signal disruptor sat on a central workbench, its components exposed and internal circuits visible through a transparent housing. It's designed to broadcast on the same frequency the Pharaohs used to communicate. Vega explained as they examined it, but we couldn't determine the exact modulation pattern. Without that, it's useless. Emma encoded it in my mind, Ryder said, touching the device gently. As his fingers made contact, information flooded through him. Schematics, frequencies, code sequences. Outside, gunfire erupted as the outpost defenders engaged the first wave of Pharaohs. Shouts and screams echoed through corridors, punctuated by inhuman howls. We don't have much time, Mia said from her position by the door, rifle at the ready. Ryder looked up at her, struck by how young she still was despite everything they'd been through. Mia, you should go with Commander Thorne. Help with the evacuation. I'm not leaving you, she said firmly. I need you to survive, he replied, the weight of realization settling on him. Someone needs to tell the world what happened here. What's still happening? Understanding dawned in her eyes. You're not planning on making it out, are you? Before he could answer, the lab door burst open and a bloodied soldier stumbled in. They breached the main entrance, he gasped. Dozens of them led by something bigger. Alpha, Vega whispered. Thorne was already moving. Doctor, you and Sullivan finished that device. Ms. Zhang, with me, we'll buy you as much time as we can. She paused at the door. If this doesn't work, I've authorized a nuclear failsafe. This mountain comes down in 30 minutes, with or without us. As they left, Ryder turned back to the disruptor, his hands moving with unexpected confidence as he began making adjustments. Vega watched in amazement. How do you know what to do? I don't, Ryder admitted, but she does. Working feverishly, guided by knowledge that wasn't his own, Ryder reconfigured circuits, adjusted frequencies, and loaded the complex modulation pattern Emma had somehow transferred to him. The device hummed to life, its power core glowing with increasing intensity. It's working, Vega breathed, monitoring the output. The signal pattern is stabilizing. A deafening crash echoed from the corridor outside, followed by the rattle of automatic weapons fire and screams cut horribly short. The Pharaohs were getting closer. How long until it's ready to broadcast? Ryder asked, making final adjustments. Minutes, maybe less. Vega glanced nervously at the door. But we need to be at the central transmitter to broadcast facility-wide. It's 3 levels up. Then we'd better move fast. Ryder disconnected the device, careful not to disrupt the delicate calibration. As he lifted it, another wave of pain shot through his head. But different this time. Not Emma's voice, but another presence, darker and far more powerful. I feel you, Receiver, it growled in his mind. You carry her scent, her essence. Lead me to her, and I might allow you to join us. Alpha, Ryder staggered under the mental assault, the disruptor nearly slipping from his grasp. Sullivan, Vega steadied him. What's wrong? He's here, Ryder gasped. In my head. Alpha. Vega's face paled. We need to move. Now. They hurried from the lab into corridors that had become war zones. Bodies, human and feral, littered the floor. Emergency lights cast everything in a bloody glow as sprinklers rained down from above, triggered by fires burning in adjacent sections. They had almost reached the stairwell when a feral lunged from a darkened room, tackling Vega to the ground. Ryder swung the disruptor like a club, catching the creature in the head with enough force to send it sprawling. Go! He shouted, pulling Vega to his feet. Keep moving. More shapes move in the shadows around them, drawn by the commotion. Ryder kicked open the stairwell door, and they began climbing, the sound of pursuit close behind. You can't stop what's coming. Alpha's voice resonated in Ryder's mind. The convergence is inevitable. Humanity had its chance. Now it's our turn. What does he mean by convergence? Ryder asked Vega as they reached the second level. The scientist's breathing was labored, blood seeping from a gash on his forehead. Emma theorized that the feral evolution isn't random. It's directed, working towards some kind of collective organism. Individual ferals are just cells in a larger body still taking shape. And Alpha is what? The brain, the catalyst, the first piece of the puzzle that allows all others to connect. Vega paused, listening to the sounds of combat echoing through the facility. If the ferals achieve full convergence, they won't just be a threat to survival. They'll be an extinction-level event. They reached the third level, only to find a corridor ahead blocked by a mass of twisted metal and concrete. Part of the ceiling had collapsed. There's another way, Vega said, redirecting them down a side passage, through the secure medical wing. As they navigated the labyrinthine facility, Ryder felt Alpha's presence growing stronger in his mind, a constant pressure seeking entry. Beneath it, growing fainter, was Emma's voice, urging him forward, warning him of dangers ahead. They were nearly to the medical wing when the wall beside them exploded inward. 3 ferals burst through the breach, followed by a towering figure that made Ryder's blood run cold. Standing nearly 8 feet tall, Alpha barely resembled a human he had once been. His massive frame was encased in natural armor, bone plates and hardened tissue that gleamed wetly in the emergency lighting. His elongated head swiveled toward them with predatory focus, milky eyes locking onto Ryder. Run, Ryder whispered to Vega, pressing the disruptor into the scientist's hands. Get this to the transmitter. I'll hold them off. You can't, Vega protested, clutching the device. He'll tear you apart. He won't, Ryder said with strange certainty. Not yet. He need me to find Emma. Before Vega could argue further, Ryder stepped forward, placing himself between the scientist and the ferals. Go, he ordered. As Vega fled, Alpha raised a hand, and the lesser ferals halted their pursuit. He approached Ryder with a grace that belied his monstrous size, head tilting with almost human curiosity. You're different, Alpha said, his voice a guttural rumble that Ryder felt more than heard. You carry your signal. Strong. Clear. Ryder struggled to hide his shock. None of the reports had mentioned ferals capable of speech. I'm not taking you to her, he said, fighting to keep his voice steady. Alpha's lipless mouth twisted in what might have been a smile. You already are, with every thought, every connection. He tapped a clawed finger against Ryder's temple. She's in there. And through you, I can reach her. Why? What do you want from her? Completion. Alpha circled him slowly. She made me. Unmade me, remade me, but the process is flawed, unstable. He gestured to his body, where patches of flesh seemed to shift and ripple beneath the armored plates. The hunger is unending, the pain constant. For a moment, Ryder glimpsed a human that had once existed within this monster, a test subject who had volunteered for a procedure he couldn't possibly have understood. "She's trying to help you," Ryder said, an idea forming. That's what the signal is about. She's developed a stabilizer. Alpha stopped, interest visibly peaked. "Where? I can take you to it. But you're..." Ryder gestured to the lesser pharaohs, watching with predatory intensity. "Your children stay here." A rumbling sound emerged from Alpha's chest. Something like laughter, not children, extensions, parts of the whole. He turned to them, emitting a series of clicks and subsonic growls. The pharaohs withdrew, melting into the shadows. "Now," Alpha said, turning back to Ryder, "show me this stabilizer." Ryder led him through the corridors, heart pounding with each step. The plan was desperate, probably suicidal, but it was all he had. Led Alpha away from Vega and the Disruptor. Buy time for the broadcast. Hope it worked. "How long have you been able to speak?" he asked, keeping his tone conversational despite the absurdity of small talk with a pharaoh. "Speech is inefficient," Alpha growled. "We communicate more directly, but some concepts require translation for those like you who cannot hear properly. And the others, can they speak too? Some, the older ones, those closer to the transition." Alpha's massive hand suddenly closed around Ryder's arm, claws digging into flesh. "No more delay. Where's the stabilizer?" Ryder winced but kept moving. In Dr. Chen's private lab, lower level, they descended to facility, encountering scenes of carnage at every turn. Ryder tried not to look at the bodies of Outpost Omega's personnel, people who had fought and died while he led their killer deeper into their sanctuary. "It's not your fault," Emma's voice whispered in his mind. Fainter now. "You're doing what's necessary. I can hear her through you." Alpha's mental voice overlapped, triumphant. The connection grows stronger. She is close. They reached a secure lab where Emma's suspension chamber hummed with eerie calm, an island of order in the chaos that had consumed the outpost. Alpha approached it with something like reverence, placing one massive hand against the glass. "Emma," he rumbled, "see what you've made of me." Within the chamber, Emma's eyes opened fully, fixing on Alpha with recognition. Her lips moved, bubbles rising through the fluid, but no sound emerged. The stabilizer, she communicated directly to Ryder in the storage unit. "Red case." Ryder moved to the unit she indicated, keenly aware of Alpha's attention split between him and Emma. Inside was indeed a red case, containing what looked like an injector gun similar to the one Emma had used on herself. "Is this what you're looking for?" he asked, showing it to Alpha. The creature's eyes narrowed. "What does it do?" "It halts the degradation, stabilizes the changes so you can control them rather than being controlled by them." Ryder held it out. "Isn't that what you want? To end the pain?" Alpha reached for the injector, massive fingers surprisingly delicate as they closed around it. "And the others?" "My extensions. It can be synthesized, mass-produced." Ryder was moving carefully now, edging toward the chamber's control panel. Emma's notes contained the formula. For a moment, Alpha seemed to consider this. Then his expression shifted, becoming more predatory. "You think I don't know what you're doing? What she's planning?" He crushed the injector in his grip, viscous fluid dripping between his fingers. "There is no stabilizer, only a weapon. Worth a try," Ryder admitted, abandoning pretense. He lunged to the control panel, slamming his hand down on the emergency release. The suspension chamber hissed, fluid draining rapidly as the glass walls retracted. Emma's body slumped forward, caught by Ryder before she could collapse completely. Her skin was cold, pulse faint but present. Alpha roared in fury, the sound so powerful it cracked the remaining glass in the chamber. "You cannot hide her from me." "I'm not hiding her," Ryder said, supporting Emma's slight weight. "I'm helping her finish what she started." Emma's eyes fluttered open, still that unnatural milky white, but alert, aware. "Alpha," she whispered, her voice raspy from disuse. "Jonathan, I'm sorry." Alpha froze at the sound of what must have been his human name. For a heartbeat, uncertainty crossed his inhuman features. The moment was shattered by the facility's communication system crackling to life. Vega's voice echoed through the speakers. "Disruptor online. Broadcasting in 30 seconds." Alpha's roar of rage shook the very foundations of the lab. He lunged forward, claws extended toward Emma, but Ryder pulled her aside, sending them both crashing into a bank of equipment. "You cannot stop the convergence." Alpha bellowed. "It is larger than you, larger than me. It is the next step." "Maybe," Emma said weakly, leaning heavily against Ryder. "But humanity deserves a choice." A high-pitched tone began to emanate from the speakers. Inaudible at first, then rising into a painful whine that made Ryder's teeth ache and his vision blur. Alpha clutched his elongated head, a howl of agony tearing from his throat. Throughout the facility, similar cries echoed. Hundreds of pharaohs suddenly disconnected from their collective consciousness, their hive minds shattered by the precise frequency Emma had calculated. Alpha stumbled, his massive form crashing into equipment as he fought against the signal's effects. "What have you done?" he growled, each word seemingly more difficult than the last. "Given you back yourself," Emma replied. "Separated you from the others. It's what you wanted once, before the transformation took your humanity." The creature that had been Jonathan stared at her with hatred, and something else, a glimmer of the human still trapped within. "You did this to me," he snarled. "You promised to make me better." "I know," she said softly. "That's why I have to fix it." She pulled away from Ryder, reaching for something in the debris of her collapsed suspension chamber, a second injector hidden within the base. "The true stabilizer," she explained, meeting Ryder's confused gaze. "Not to help them evolve, but to reverse it, to restore their humanity." Alpha must have understood her intention, because he lunged again despite the disorienting effects of the signal. But his movements were clumsy now, uncoordinated without the hive mind to guide him. Emma raised the injector, but her weakened state made her too slow. Alpha's claws caught her across the chest, sending her flying across the lab in a spray of blood. "No!" Ryder shouted, diving for the fallen injector. Alpha turned on him, rage giving him focus even as the disruptor signaled toward his mind. "I will tear you apart," he promised, advancing with predatory intent. Ryder's fingers closed around the injector just as Alpha reached him, rolling away from a swipe that would have taken his head off. He came up in a crouch, the device primed and ready. "Jonathan," he said, using the name that had once belonged to this creature. "This ends now." Alpha charged, and Ryder met him head-on, ducking under massive arms to drive the injector deep into the creature's neck. Alpha's momentum carried them both into the wall with bone-crushing force, but Ryder managed to press the trigger, emptying the stabilizer into his bloodstream. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Alpha's body began to convulse, his armored plates cracking and falling away as the substance coursed through him. He released Ryder, staggering backward, claws tearing at his own flesh as if trying to excise the stabilizer. "What's happening to him?" Ryder asked, crawling toward where Emma lay bleeding. "The reversal is violent," she whispered, her breathing shallow. "The body fights it, but it's working." Alpha collapsed to his knees, his massive form seemingly shrinking as the mutation began to reverse itself. The process was horrific to witness. Bone restructuring, muscle reforming, skin sloughing off to reveal more human tissue beneath. Through it all, his screams transformed from inhuman howls to something recognizably human. The agonized cries of a man experiencing his own rebirth. Ryder reached Emma, cradling her head gently. "You did it. The signal's working. The ferals are separating." She smiled weakly, blood staining her lips. "Not just separating, returning. The stabilizer can be aerosolized, distributed widely. It won't save everyone, but those not too far gone. We'll finish it," Ryder promised. "Vega and I will make sure your work continues." Emma's hand found his, squeezing with surprising strength. "You were always the best of us, Ryder, even when you didn't know it." Her eyes, still that unnatural white, fixed on his. "I'm sorry I pulled you into this, that I used you. You saved me," he corrected her. "You saved all of us." The facilities shuttered around them, whether from structural damage or Thorne's promised nuclear failsafe preparing to detonate. Ryder couldn't tell. "You need to go," Emma urged. "The stabilizer is in my private server. Encrypted, but you'll have access now. The connection we share, it's permanent, even after I'm gone." "I'm not leaving you," Ryder insisted. "Yes, you are." Her smile was peaceful now. "I was never meant to survive this, Ryder. The suspension fluid was the only thing keeping me alive after I injected myself with the prototype. Without it..." She glanced down at her wounds. "Well, this just speeds up the inevitable." Another tremor shook the lab, stronger this time. Warning lights flashed as the outpost evacuation protocol engaged. "Go," Emma whispered. "Find Mia. Find Vega. Get my research out. Give humanity a fighting chance." Ryder wanted to argue, to carry her out despite her protests, but the truth was written in her fading vitals and the pool of blood spreading beneath her. "What about him?" he asked, nodding toward Alpha, who had stopped convulsing and now lay still, his form more human than monster, though still grotesquely hybrid. "Jonathan made his choice when he volunteered for the program," Emma said. "Maybe this way he finds some peace." With a final surge of strength, she pulled Ryder down and pressed her forehead to his. Information flooded his mind. Research data, formulas, locations of other outposts, personnel who could be trusted. Everything she knew, everything she had discovered, transferred in a moment of intense connection. "Now go," she whispered. "Live. Remember." Ryder laid her gently on the floor, knowing there was nothing more he could do. "Goodbye, Emma." He was halfway to the door when Alpha, or what remained of him, spoke. His voice was raspy but human, the words halting as if he'd forgotten how to form them. "Wait." The figure struggled to sit up, his body a patchwork of human and feral features caught in mid-transformation. "Take me with you." Ryder hesitated, every instinct screaming that this was the creature that had led the attack on Haven, that had killed countless innocents. Why should I? Because the man who'd been Alpha rasped, I can still hear them. The others, scattered, confused, but alive. And they'll listen to me. You want to help them? After everything, I want to fix what I helped break. His eyes, no longer milky white but human brown, held a clarity that hadn't been there before. Isn't that what she wanted? For all of us? Ryder looked back at Emma's still form, then at the man struggling to reclaim his humanity. With a deep breath, he extended his hand. "Jonathan, right?" A nod. "I think so. It's been a long time. I'm Ryder, and we need to go now." He helped the former Alpha to his feet, supporting him as they made their way from the lab. Behind them, Emma Chin lay surrounded by the wreckage of her life's work and the promise of humanity's future.